It's 7 o'clock.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so we'll do roll call. I'm Tammy Higgins, I'm the chair.
Joe Parker, trustee.
Mary Wood, recording secretary.
Patricia Dunn, secretary.
Sherry Van Wyk, member.
Look at the agenda.
I'm here to approve the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of the minutes.
I will also move to approve the minutes from March 7th.
All in favor?
Aye.
So that brings us to our first call to public. Would anyone like to speak? You have 3 minutes. Going once? Twice? Okay. We'll move on to unfinished business. Section 1319, solar energy systems. Do you have any workshop? These are times, Joe.
There's no dates or times, working to coordinate between John Harris and Ms. Stallmeyer. And naturally, I guess, really, like you said, with Mark also, to get a series of dates that we can all meet at. I don't have any response back from John on his time schedule. So,
All right, we'll keep that on the agenda, I guess, and just
yeah.
look at it next month, and maybe we'll have some dates. You think we'll
Yeah,
have
I
dates?
mean, I imagine if I would board meeting, there would be something that can report. Put it on.
Next item is section 1310, kennel, commercial kennels. We tabled that from 3.7, and I think it might go into section 2012, to personal dogs. This, Ann, you gave us some.
Yeah, in regards to both sections, I have given you guys a packet. The packet with paperclip is our current ordinance and anything applying to it. The stapled packet is the county ordinance. Deputy Delatorre could not be here tonight. If the commission would like, he's willing to try and be here next month to discuss. They would really prefer that their kennel ordinance match our kennel ordinance. And I have put an orange little flag on the section that he's referring to. So if the commission could read through that, and if we could put that on the May agenda, that would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, I'll do that, and I think it would be better if we all can just take it
Yeah.
and read it.
And then just let me know if you would like him present. That way, if you have any questions about the ordinance or whatnot, I can let him know.
Discussion on that, guys, what you guys
I mean, I guess it wouldn't hurt to have them here, but I guess we could read through it and, you know.
You can always email
I
me
can email you.
within the,
just,
you know,
whatever is individual.
as long as I can give him a couple week notice, that's fine.
Okay.
I like the idea of being here, but you guys.
Yeah, I agree. Him being here, then we can ask.
Yeah, we can ask.
We can ask the questions
Okay,
like that.
I'll let
and
him
get
know
the
that
feedback.
it would be great if you could be at the May meeting then.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then we'll be more prepared too, because then we can read through that.
Yep.
So this whole packet is the Livingston County?
Ordinance, yes. And the animal control's goal is to have every township in the county have the same kennel ordinance.
Right.
I guess Marion's in the process of altering yours at the moment.
Okay, so I mean, you think we should let Mark know about this, or just wait till we talk with him next month? Yeah.
I would wait until we decide if we're gonna make any changes or not.
Right. Okay. so then it comes, it's going fast. Township board report, Joe, so it's back at you.
And mostly standard stuff. We had our registration for the, or I should say, we had a report from Jason on the recreation plan. On the end of our fire report, we're going to be having the ribbon cutting on the 29th at 1 p.m. at the fire hall. We approved at the board the plan that the planning commission had recommended as far as putting the group together to hire Mr. Holmier, along with Harris and Mark and Tammy and myself to work on a modified ordinance. Obviously, we adopted the moratorium for the solar ordinance. We discussed the roof repair, and I'm kind of still working on getting quotes for that. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'll get to that. We approved the roadside cleanup for this year, where, of course, gets hauling, goes around the township, picking up trash out of the ditches. That was $3,500.
Just 3,500, and you're still doing this once a year.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the idea is they get out there before the grass grows up, so.
I've been out there, all right.
I know. I mean, it's good for about a week, right, and then things are trashed again. It's amazing. We discussed the contribution to the trash fee. Basically, the results are, we're gonna keep it as the township pays a third, residents pay 2/3, even though the cost of the service is going up annually as part of the contract. And at least for the first container, anybody who has second or third containers, they bear the full cost of that. We extended the Linwood Farms extraction and mobile home permit, and we won't have to do that again. Currently, our new, as pointed out, our current ordinance does not require them to come through an official process to get the approval, as long as they're updating the insurance and bond. It'll just be a matter of touching bases with Julie, and Julie and notifying to have them make sure we get that documents in. We don't have to go through the board approval and all that. And then I guess the big news is, everyone here probably is aware of it, I don't know about the public, but Pete at our budget hearing turned in his letter of resignation. So,
I didn't know that.
oh, you didn't know
It's
that?
on the paper, that's fine.
Yeah.
Oh,
So, I think that's what, 36 years?
Over 36 years.
So, he was supervisor, so he celebrated his 80th this year, and he said that's enough. So that'll be obviously on the board agenda.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay.
One question. So the moratorium was approved for 6 months, correct?
Okay. So that makes it go away, like it ends, the 6 months that was starting
In March,
in
at
March.
that meeting, right.
At that meeting?
So it's
Okay.
good till September. Okay. And, I guess you're up.
I have issued 8 permits for the year so far. Of those 8 permits, 3 of them are for new houses. And in addition to those 8 permits, I've issued 1 waiver. We had a fire on Kane Road just before the first of the year, and they're gonna demo the house so they can rebuild. I'm currently working on junk complaints and garbage complaints on Lamoureux, Coon Lake, and Bradley. 2 of them are repeat offenders. I'm not quite sure why people can't have pride in their property right now. Junk complaints are really up. So, other than that, we're good.
Thank you. And there's no CBA.
Those are good.
All right, I guess we're gonna open it back up then to, unless anybody here has anything else they want to say. You guys want- We're gonna open it back up to the public. If anyone has anything they'd like to say.
Since you mentioned joke complaints, what is the process there? Sorry, I've got it's an issue or not, but what is the process when a complaint is made?
You need to file a formal complaint along with your name and phone number so that I can contact you in order for us to begin the proceedings of trying to get whoever has a problem cleaned up if we deem it's against our ordinances.
It's like a letter to the homeowner or something?
You file a complaint with our office. I would actually love it if you talk to your neighbor first. I feel that it would be more effective if people got to know each other and realize what's going on, what people can see in their yards. Otherwise, you can file a formal complaint in my office.
And then Ann would,
Yeah, and
Check
then
it out.
I would start investigating it.
and if needed,
Just curious what the
the letter
process
would
is.
be issued.
Yeah,
What-
but
what
we
is,
don't take anonymous complaints.
What is trash exactly? Is that just not controlling their trash container and wind blowing it?
Correct,
Or you're
correct.
talking like scrap metal or abandoned
Unlicensed
cars? or-
vehicles
Oh, okay.
is a problem. You can only have an unlicensed vehicle for 6 months in the township according to our ordinance. But to be honest with you, it's the garbage, just plain old garbage, even stuff, bills. I mean, people are finding stuff with other people's names on it in their yard. There's no reason to have all this stuff floating around.
Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Just to add to that, I know on social media, Livingston County Conservation District did a clean out and they said they had, I forget, but they had a lot of garbage and they even put it in their little post, like, by the way, like, why all this garbage?
Right.
So, yeah, they cleaned it out of the river. Still open to the public, anybody else?
I have one question. For this workshop that you guys are gonna start doing is, like, who's gonna initiate getting a hold of all the members, and then how often are you meeting? Are we gonna see something at the next planning commission meeting that's like a draft of a new ordinance, or how's that working? What kind of feedback are we gonna get next time around?
I mean, you'll get a status, kind of like I just did. I mean, obviously, it hasn't really started yet.
Right?
Whether or not there's a meeting that happens in time with the schedules that allow us, home year to draft something up, and then Mark Idelson to also draft something, to work it into our ordinance. I mean, it's probably optimistic. I mean, generally, an ordinance that we work on to get a draft copy done, where we're ready to, publish it and take public comment and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it could be 3 to 6 months. I mean, so, yeah, I wouldn't expect to have something to hand out in the next month or two. That would be really. that
So
would
a
be
couple
really
months
fast.
away, we should start seeing some information? on
Oh,
what's
yeah,
gonna take
I mean, if
place?
nothing else, you would start seeing when the meetings, we tell you what's going on that way, so.
I would imagine all the feedback that we have had, I've sent that to our plan guy, and that all those things are gonna be addressed with the group, to compare to what we have and how we can revise it. So,
That's all I got.
I'm sorry, what was the workshop? Is that to do with the solar, or?
yeah.
Okay, can you elaborate on what this workshop is?
It's just the attorneys, along with our land planner and a couple of the members of the planning commission getting together, using all of the public inputs that we have, along with Mike Homer's experience with the other townships, and redrafting our ordinance to then have reviewed, I guess, really. I mean, it's
Okay.
just redrafting our ordinance with all that input.
Now, that Mike Collier, he's been working with Conway, right? And how long have they been going through this? Years, hasn't it been? How long did they
I
start?
wouldn't comment on what Conway's doing.
Couple months.
Couple months, that's all?
Couple months, about 3 to 4 months. I mean, when it started to really pick up, and then they probably no more than 6 months when they started to really, because they didn't have an ordinance,
Oh,
so they started
But we
from
do.
scratch. Well,
We did.
you do,
I
or
mean, I guess technically
We do.
we do still.
We do.
It's just
Yeah.
with the moratorium.
It's the moratorium,
it's a moot
not
point.
the
and the ordinance does not allow this, right?
Our ordinance
it
allows
does, it
this.
does. It
Our
does.
ordinance allowed it.
so help us with that. She makes a good question. So help us with the ordinance. Did you guys draft the ordinance here, since that's planning? Would you have drafted it here? Back
It would have
in,
been
when was
drafted.
it? Back in 2021,
2018.
2018? It was approved in 2021.
No, I think it was 2018.
It was amended in
We
2021.
Then we amended it in 2021.
What we have right now, it says December 2020.
Right, the latest
Right, and that
version.
was, but we had one in 2018.
Right.
We had public input. We revised from that public input in 2021.
And those, in that ordinance covers 3, it seems like you were trying to draft 3 things. You were talking about houses, which was really the main focal point, but then you dipped your toe in the water on mid-size or large solar farms. But you don't have anything that defines what mid-size or large are. And so my question,
It's in
It's
there.
in there.
It's in there.
it's not in there.
Okay.
I don't think it's in there. There's no acreage,
No,
there's no.
I think it's a square footage. But
Right, so I don't know if that meets, so does that old ordinance now, is this ordinance gonna supersede that ordinance? So if there's deals that are going on right now, from a farmer's standpoint, I guess that's an attorney question, I don't ever see the attorney here, but I assume that somebody drafted that up, and so there's something that's in play for at least a couple of years, and now we now have some ordinance now. So the new ordinance that we're working on, that's gonna be able to retro back to the old
There's nothing
ordinance.
in play currently.
There's nothing in play currently.
Correct.
For-
We have an ordinance that's on the books. We have a moratorium that's on the books. We
Right?
have no applications for a solar farm, whatever you want to call it.
So there's no one out there
building.
to bring in from a DT, let's just use them as an example, because I was surprised to hear this last time. There's no DTE that's going out there and surveying the number of farmers that are out here and having coffee with them.
Sure there are.
They might.
Okay, so there is, but there's no deals that have been made, at least registered with the,
We have
With the
no
county?
permit. We have no request for permit.
Requested a permit.
That's what counts to us. DTE can do whatever they want.
Right.
They're a private company,
okay,
right? If they want to lease land from people, I
sure,
mean, it doesn't
right,
mean that they're going to be able to do what they want to do.
okay, fair enough.
They have not applied,
Bless you.
and for right now, if they applied, it would kind of be a moot point.
Gotcha. That's good to know. I didn't know that. I was just thinking that was in play, and now we're bringing something else in play,
You
and,
know,
okay. So there really isn't anything in play.
correct.
Okay.
So are we working on the ordinance to stop the large solar thing? Is that what you guys are doing? Is that why we got lawyers and getting Mike to do this?
We're working on to stop the large solar. I guess that'll be determined. We'll be meeting with Mike on that. We'll be meeting with our attorney and our planner. I mean, I wouldn't say you're gonna get an ordinance gonna stop anything. I mean, it's gonna be more controls on it for sure. But even Mr. Homier is gonna tell you that, no, you can't just say no. That's
Hopefully it's
just-
fair and balanced.
What do you mean fair and balanced?
Fair and balanced for all interested parties.
So the homeowners next door?
Yeah.
Right.
How is that gonna be fair to the homeowners that live next door to it? it's not my property that I can control the lease, but now it's affecting my family and my property and my home. So how is that fair to us?
You know, we can't stop it completely. I mean, I guess you can look at what Marion did and get an example of how another township has handled it. Their board did not want it. Their goal was to stop it. Mr. Homier told them, you can't do that. They ended up with an overlay district, which I believe is 170 or 172 acres,
Yeah.
but they still have it.
But
So-
it's not their
What
whole
did they start with? I'm
township.
sorry.
Sorry, it's not their whole township, and that's
Yeah.
what we're looking at right now.
Yeah, what did they start with in Marion? Because we attended those meetings as well, and we were clear, and it seemed like their, Pete Miller was just ready to get done with the whole process. It doesn't seem like their supervisor was doing his part. No, their Marion supervisor, yes. So what did they start with? Like, what is our projected acreage that they want from us? Is there a number for that or no?
I mean, not as far as I know.
And
Okay.
what is the yellow marked out, the things that we see?
Yeah, because yes, exactly. I seen a flyer that had a good amount of land taken
Right.
out. But is that accurate, or is this just something that's been inflated that we're looking at and we're like, holy crap, like this is a lot of our land that we have to see driving up and down Bull Run, down Roberts, that we don't want to see there.
And
I
didn't
guess
they
I'm not
concede
sure how
the
to answer your
commercial,
question.
Marion Township, didn't they concede the commercial
Yeah,
property?
they took it to where it was appropriate, ultimately, over their overlay.
And what's the difference between an overlay and just any farmland here? Because that was one of the big things in Marion, and at first, it was farmland, it was everywhere. What's the difference in an overlay compared to, like he's saying, just any place?
I mean, I have not read their ordinance, so I'm assuming that they've got some kind of restricted zoning on that overlay, whether they're calling it like a solar park one community, I don't know.
So we're trying to do this here.
What's that?
This is our goal, is to do this here, is what they did in Marion.
Right.
Okay.
That's your goal too?
When you
Why
say
are
ours,
they saying to go from 1,000 acres to 170 acres per se?
He said it loud and clear, we got you.
I'm not gonna say what acres we're at.
I don't want to promise people anything either.
Right.
You can't promise us anything, but
Right.
we understand that we're all here for a reason. And
So nobody knows where this yellow, like, section
yeah, that yellow
came
stuff is.
from?
I don't want to
that is-
live here, I do not know where that, none of that
I'm
didn't come
assuming the
officially
yellow
from the
section you're
township.
talking about is something that
Other
somebody got
people?
from, there was a document going around that somebody pulled from the county on properties. And I'm
Okay.
guessing that's the properties that people
They're
that
eligible.
signed up potential leases with.
They're eligible,
Oh,
okay, understood.
No, right now, anyone's eligible
But
for
right
any
now,
farmland,
Yeah.
the way our ordinance is written. The yellow map shows where registered leases have been signed or registered with the register of deeds. So depending on what our ordinance, how it turns out, it can go there, it can go anywhere. It just depends on what our board puts in place. And I think what a lot of people want to know is, can we expect an overlay here? Or are we thinking we're just gonna leave it to, like it is, to go anywhere and just change some restrictions? I think that's what people want to know. Because that's what they're doing in most of the townships, they're putting an overlay. Conway's working on an overlay too.
Can somebody explain the overlay?
Yeah, what does that mean?
Not
It's
really-
where they put another land use on a section of land. So they pick out a space where they think it's appropriate.
It's
And they,
still-
yeah, they say just in this area, we can also allow solar to be put in there.
Okay.
So it's keeping it in one spot. Right now, our ordinance says it can go on any agricultural land.
I don't know if this is a suggestion or not, but it seemed like the other township was able to have Homer at a forum, whether it's this forum or some other forum, but a forum. And it allowed then sort of everybody to ask the questions. And he, now that he's already drafted up Marion, can can help us with the strategy that he used and why he used it. And I don't know if the same fact pattern makes sense for us or not, but he'll be able to say, I think it's really important to the board that we, by the planning commission, that we see him before those discussions get going. I don't know, and maybe then you can have
He
the
is part of
workshop.
those discussions.
No, I'm just saying, this group, because if we say what's an overlay, I assume Homer could tell us exactly what the overlay did, why he did it, and what did they try to do. And I think now that Marion Township has done what they've done, we at least have, I mean, and obviously there's lots of other examples out there, you know, not around us, but there's plenty of examples. It's not like solar has just appeared, it's just appeared here, but it's been everywhere on the East Coast to the West Coast to Europe. So and he has that knowledge. It would just, I just think it would be beneficial to get him, whether it's this kind of a meeting or whatever, to at least hear what the people have to say. And he can then say, you make a good point, but there's absolutely no way to make that work with the state law. And why does that make sense? Or it's gonna cost you guys millions and millions of dollars to fight this all the way to the end. Are you willing to raise your millages or whatever to cover that? I think he'll be able to give us, because that's what he does. He does it 7 days a week, every day of the day. He's the guy. And I don't understand why we can't see him prior to the workshops happening, Joe. Oh, and I know you guys got good notes and everybody has great notes, but I don't think the passion that you can't explain to him the passion. He knows it, he's heard it. Marion Township was the same way. I was just thinking, just a suggestion, that I think then we could get our answers, whether we like the answers or not, that's totally in.
We're following what our attorney suggested we do. So we're gonna move forward like this.
So you're gonna still, no matter, so I understand the attorney, I don't even know who the attorney is, but can we even just get him in front of, so you're saying that that's not a go?
That's how I go.
Okay,
Right now.
and I would just.
I wouldn't say what happened in the future.
No, I understand that, but I would sort of just push back again, because to me, whenever you're working on a huge project and you got the community out here, you know, all of a sudden in 3 to 4 months, we're gonna get a piece of paper, boom. And we're gonna be trying to say, well, 3 months ago, we could have told you that was, you know, why can't you get that in there? And he might say, that's a great idea, I never thought of it, or whatever. I understand your position that you want to get going on it, but I don't understand what hurts him just sitting in front of us and just giving us a few minutes of his time. It's not going to cost us that much, right, to bring him here for 4 hours or 3 hours. But I think it might win, some of the audience here might get some benefit out of it.
Peace of mind.
You get a lot more people here.
I'm just saying, you might get more people on your side as opposed to bringing it to us in 3 or 4 months and we're like, hell no. This is not what we talked about. This is not the question that I asked you. I'm just saying. And I know we talked privately before, you know, a week ago, and that's the same thing I said at the time. Me personally, coming from the business world, transparency is everything. And you'll get more people on your side than you ever will but if you don't, then there's gonna be a lot of people upset. That's all. Take it for what it's worth.
I'm pretty much sure there'll be gonna be people upset either way.
I'm gonna say that you'll have less people, I'll predict, because I've done big projects and I've had to work with outside people. I would say that you're gonna have less people. Yeah, are you gonna win everybody over? No. But if you get 50% or you get 60%, that's better than where you are if you got 100% looking at you. That's all I'm saying. So, I know you've got a lot of experience, and the whole group here has a lot of experience doing this, and I'm sure, but we're willing to listen and talk to him if we can, but if we can't, we can't.
Thank you.
Can I follow up? Oh, sorry.
I
was just,
Yeah,
no.
because I was just wondering, what does the township gain from this?
Came from what?
From, if this should happen, what are the positive aspects? Is it tax revenue or?
Redrafting the new ordinance, you mean, or?
No, sir.
Letting
If a
DTE
solar
come
farm is
in.
built in our township, what does the township in general gain from it?
I mean, nothing particularly.
You'll get tax
Why
revenue.
do
It's
it?
supposed to be tax dollars.
You're gonna get tax revenue.
Yeah.
You definitely get tax
So a
revenue.
tax revenue.
Can I ask how you're gonna gauge that revenue?
Currently, I guess there'd be a tax revenue, I mean.
Because I assume that you guys aren't gonna let this property be agricultural no more, right? I mean,
Right.
my question to the attorney would be that as soon as you put something up commercial, then it's no longer, so now the whole game home, it changes. A farmer can't come back in 30 years and wanna claim this as agricultural, you guys can't do that, you gotta take that away, right?
Unfortunately.
No, you don't have to. I know you don't have to, but in your ordinance, you should, because you've made it commercial.
Tammy, may I speak on?
Sure, go ahead, Ann.
In regards to tax revenue, the state of Michigan is gonna dictate how I value that property as an assessor. They're gonna dictate whether or not it's personal property or whatever, buildings on leased land, that kind of thing. We don't have control on how it's gonna be valued, the state's gonna tell me what they want, just so you know.
The state.
The state of Michigan.
Is there a trend that you can say you've seen this happen already in other?
No, because we do not have this in Livingston County
What
yet.
about Shiawassee County?
To be honest with you, it's my understanding at the state of Michigan level, they are contemplating different ways on how these are gonna be valued. So I have not studied what Shiawassee County has done yet.
Go ahead, Julie.
I just want to explain some things, and I know some of you won't understand or won't care, but, so, this is driven by the state, the federal and state government. There is something called, well, first, just, we all know that the legislature, the House and the Senate and the governor are all Democratic, and it is a initiative of theirs for green energy. So the energy companies, utility companies went to the state. The state, it was already an initiative of the state, and they pushed for this. So the utility companies in the state want this because it's an initiative of theirs. The Democratic Party is about renewable energy, and they have our House, the Senate, and the governor. So we can't do exclusionary zoning. It's against the law to do exclusionary zoning. So we can't not allow it at all. So we have to allow it in some manner or form. There are a lot of people, I've gone to a lot of meetings regarding this, and with senators, with Lana Tice, it is believed if we make it impossible, and I know you guys don't want to hear this, if we make it impossible or nearly impossible for them to come in, the state is going to do something called preempting. If you know anything about farming, we're all from a farming community. The Right to Farm Act is an example of preempting. What happened with the Right to Farm Act is they don't have to follow the vast majority of our ordinances. When something is preempted, the state decides what the rules are going to be. So the utility companies and the state want this green energy, renewable energy. So we can try and do this in a manner in which it's going to help or make it as best as possible to have it in our community, or we can wait, we can make it nearly impossible, and then the utility companies are going to go back to the state and say, we tried to meet your mandate, which they pushed for, and the state's going to say, okay, you tried, all these communities are making it impossible for the utility companies to meet our mandate, we're going to take over, and then we have no say at all. And what the ordinance is going to look like, the state will dictate the rules for having these large-scale solars in your community. So I know that's not what you want to hear, and you can believe it or you cannot believe it, but I'm telling you, I've done just as much research as the vast majority of you have. I've gone to meetings, I've talked to a lot of people, and we're going to get preempted. It's fairly certain that the preempting is going to happen. I don't know when. I can't, there's nobody can give me that answer, but all the people in the House and the Senate that I've talked to believe it will happen. And anything can happen at a fairly quick rate because they have the House, the Senate, and the governor.
So isn't 2,000 acres or plus?
Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen.
Than less than.
And we don't know what the rules are going to be
150
if we do get preempted. My point is just, we can't make it impossible. One, we can't do exclusionary zoning. And then two, I think that if we have to allow it, that we want an ordinance that's gonna be beneficial to us instead of, I guarantee you, the state will not have nearly the restrictions that we are hoping to put in. I just want you to keep that all in mind. It's not ideal, it's not what any of us really want that are here right now, but it's something that we need to truly wrap our minds around, that we're not gonna, it's gonna happen one way or the other, and I think we would all agree that we want it with more restrictions than less. So,
At least with our control.
Well, thank you for
Yeah.
that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Just to make sure I understood you right. You were saying if we allow it with our restrictions in place, that the government still could preempt?
they can, but it wouldn't be anybody that has filed a permit prior to the preempting, is my understanding. And also the changing of it from agricultural to commercial, the state does not. The state has allowed this on PA 116 land.
Right.
So it doesn't have to be changed. So PA 116 land was agreements between the state and farmers. They can use their lands for certain things. Well, the state has now said that this is one of those things they can use their land for. So it does not have to go commercial. This is an allowable use of PA 116 land.
I think personally, if I felt the board was giving me the impression that you're trying to do the minimum of what's required by the state to prevent, like what you're talking about doing, I think personally, I would feel much more confident. But I don't feel that that's what's coming from the board to us. And so I think with not having it be transparent with meetings potentially that we're more involved with or can have information about from home here, we don't feel confident. I was in a meeting where you were gonna set up with Aaron to be able to meet with you and some other people, and it was like in the room, yeah, that sounds great, everybody clapped and everybody was happy, and the next thing I knew, oh yeah, well that's not happening. And it's like, okay, so if that in public was stated and then never came to fruition, and even the meetings you're talking about now, these workshops or whatever, I don't know, I just don't feel, I agree with the man up there that said about transparency. I might feel better about it, but I don't feel that you have what a lot of people I've heard anyways have our best interest at heart here. And yes, of course, if you have to do it because they're gonna come in later and do something worse, then do the minimum. Not, like I said, 2,000 acres opposed to 150 acres, there's a big difference there. And I just don't feel that that's just my personal opinion, I don't feel that's coming from the board.
What you're stating about with Aaron being a part of that, that was stated at the township board. That wasn't stated at this meeting.
I understand.
So we haven't tried to make you guys any
You have some of the
promises.
same
That's why
members,
we
so.
haven't, we don't want to say, yes, this is going to be exactly how you want it, because there's going to be people who are going to be disappointed on both sides. And that's why I said fair and balanced, but everybody gets worked up about that, it seems like. We want to make it good for everybody, the best we can.
I think a lot of people that were at the board meeting and then seeing that the board had so much vested interest on that side was what, and then the lack of transparency is what is.
What has not been said? Where's that lack of transparency? What have we not shared or said to you?
When it's on this board, and I'm sorry, I'm not super familiar with all the proceedings, but I believe it was the other board meeting we're at where 2 people or 3 people already had leases signed. And those are the people that are gonna be involved in the workshop, and that's,
You're incorrect on that.
They're not, yeah.
so
Well-
Ms. Bonneville and I believe the other man removed themselves because they have leases signed.
They're not part of the workshop.
They're not part of this workshop.
But
And
can I-
Amanda is part of a trust that her parents own that is on that. She is technically not part of it.
she's not voting.
But she removed herself because.
She actually did not recuse herself. She
Yeah.
said she would be abstaining
From voting.
at the application from a developer. She said
She's gonna be
clearly
part of the
she
discussion.
wants to be part of the discussion and vote on the ordinance, so.
No, She said she would not be voting.
No, she
No,
said
she said
she would
she
vote on the ordinance. She
said
would not
she-
vote on the permit.
She would
Did
vote.
she say that?
She said she has
Absolutely.
experience as a planner,
Okay,
and she will vote
thank you.
along the way.
But that's the kind of stuff
And
that
her
just
property,
on our side, the transparency, like we're talking about, those are the people that are involved with this commission. That's where we're coming from.
You need
Is
a
this
lawyer
commission
technically as a
feel
conflict of
pressure?
interest.
Are you pushing this forward, or are you taking your time and getting the citizens and figuring who's gonna, that it will be implemented equitably?
To be honest with you, because I don't wanna keep hammering this over. There's gonna be an ordinance, it's gonna be revised, we're gonna do the best we can to take everybody's interest in hand. And I think the best ordinance will make people on both sides unhappy.
can
Well,
I
you didn't answer
say
my question,
something?
though.
Well, that's just.
Please.
Go ahead, you've been
I'm
asking
sorry.
for a long time, go ahead.
So I came to a meeting in 2021 with my husband in May. And at that meeting, that's the first time we had heard of it. And you told us that you can just say no if you're approached.
You
Well,
can,
that's
a
fine.
landowner.
No, that's fine. But I'm surrounded by leased property. I live on a corner, and Amanda's dad owns property several acres behind me, several acres in front of me, and then the farmer next to her I'm going to have solar panels out every window of my house. And why is it fair that my property value goes down as well as everyone else's around here? We take care of our house. Why is my house going to cost or be worth less when I die than it was when I bought it? And it will. No, it will.
It will.
It will be all around my house. I am ground zero.
And it is.
I am one of many ground zeros. But I am on that corner. And Joe, you know where I live. And Joe, and I have to say, Joe, I don't appreciate that you talk to DTE after every meeting. You are talking to the enemy.
Right on.
And you don't think it's a conflict of interest. That's not right.
We don't know who I talked to.
No, you told us who you talked to.
I said she has called me.
Right, she calls you, but you shouldn't answer. You're supposed to be
I
like
talked to you,
on our
you called me.
side.
I talked to anybody
She
here.
doesn't live in our township, so she doesn't.
Who's she?
Well, a lot of the
Come
people
on.
in this
She doesn't
room
live in our
don't belong in
township.
this township either. And I
They can come to the meeting. They want to
It's,
know.
but you don't think it's a conflict of interest, and you're on this board to protect us. We voted you in. We
I'm on
trusted you
this-
guys.
I'm on this board to protect the township.
We trust the township board.
We're the township.
But we don't feel, like they said, we do not feel heard, and we don't feel the transparency. Omission is lying. You're not telling us the full truth.
So
I
Tammy,
mean-
when I look at this, Tammy, I look at this as a big thing, right? I
Correct.
came from the city, and when I came out here, I sort of knew what the rules were some 30 years ago. And everybody said, hey, there's farmers, there's new farming equipment, whatever. If you plan on being here, if there's an oil well, but this is new. And I think, again, I go back to, I think they're trying to be heard. And I know that you guys are trying to do the best you can. The question is again, how do these emotions, if you had the other attorney here who's done solar farms with his eyes closed, I think it would help.
The thing is, this board, the planning commission,
Sure.
I can't spend the township money, okay, your tax dollars, and go, yeah, sure, come on in, Homer, to this meeting.
Why not?
That has to go through the township.
Got it.
And they
Fair
have
enough.
to approve
And
it.
we'll bring it up there. We'll bring it up there. Because I think, again, if it's just spending money, and
And
getting,
it's probably also, like, people approving it and having the time to come,
fair enough.
okay?
Fair
I
enough.
If Homer wants to come to each of your homes and have dinner, it's
No.
his prerogative.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important that as a group, we do this, right? So, and I think everyone will have a different perspective from it.
And I do
We'll
want.
try to get closer to you guys, and you guys will hopefully try to get closer to us. And somewhere, instead of that we won't like what you come up with, I would probably say it another way. I think there's a win-win. Maybe that win-win isn't quite, a shutout. We don't win 8-0 on our side, and you don't win 8-0 on your side.
I don't have a side in this. I feel like I represent these people here who don't like solar, And I also have to represent the people who do want solar.
Absolutely.
And I have to come with something in the middle.
Yeah.
And that's where I said, everybody's gonna be unhappy on both sides.
And I have to say, I mean, Tammy sees it as a conflict of interest or me not supporting the township. And I look at it
Yeah.
as, you're not gonna get a win-win if you don't talk to DTE either, right? It's just like Julie stood up and said, if things aren't amicable enough for them to be able to do what the state is forcing them to do, it's gonna get crammed down our throats, right? Marion's made 170 acre. Where did that number come from? You can bet they grabbed it out of thin air.
No.
Homeyer thinks that they can, I haven't spoken with Homeyer, so take that just as a comment. But my guess is there's no science behind that number, other than them talking about the usage for their township, right?
I think
There is
so.
science behind
Hold
that.
on, I'm
Plenty of
speaking.
science.
There's tons of science behind that.
Hold on.
Hold on, let him.
Yeah, you'll have your chance. So the bottom line is, unless we know what that number is in acres from DTE or from CMS Energy or whoever, I mean, unless there's some idea, we really don't know. You're shooting in the dark, right? So if you don't talk to your enemy, right, you're as blind as you think we are, right? And that's just my thoughts.
I'll get to you, and then because he
Yeah,
was
yeah,
first.
he was fine.
Go ahead.
So there is science behind that. There's 2,000 panels per acre. Each panel gives out so many gigawatts. So, and they know how much need this community as far as megawatts needs, okay, for designated need, okay? And that's what they are trying to do. They are trying, this is what the attorney does, is he tries to get what your designated need is and come up with the proper amount of acreage plus future growth over a 10-year period or so. And that's how they come up with the acreage that you need. So there is like specific science behind this. Because they
For our
know.
demonstrated need.
Correct.
Right.
So what they are trying to do is set up for you to have, because this is what they're gonna go after, is what do you need for your demonstrated needs. So that's what he is trying to do, and that's what makes it for him to legally go to court and win.
And-
So-
That's the basics of it all.
Yes, I understand the theory behind that. I just have not heard from him that he believes that's a lawsuit he can win. Or, more importantly, I have not heard from DTE that they say that that is enough acres in that community that they are gonna drop their efforts at the state to have the state force it upon us.
Well, they're
I
not
always
gonna
thought
drop
electricity
it.
was a commodity.
They're never gonna drop it because they're gonna get a 30% tax credit if they meet their mark on how much green energy they have. So why would you drop anything? If you're a major corporation, I mean, Blue Cross and Blue Shield in North Carolina got $40 million saved in taxes last year because of green energy. Well,
Sure.
why is Blue Cross and Blue Shield in the solar industry and wind industry? Well, if you can save $40 million in taxes, I'd be in it too. So that they'll never drop it. They're gonna push to get their credits. And you can do it in multiple ways. It's credits up front when you build the project to get 30% off of everything, including labor. And then with some of DTE, not as much, but with some of the solar companies, they do this, then they sell it to another LLC, which might be their own LLC, because then they can get tax credit on the backside of it of 2.6 cents per kilowatt. And you're not allowed to do them both on the same project with the same corporation, so they sell it to someone else or another one of their own LLCs, and that's how they double dip.
And the
So it's
only
the same thing, it's the government, you know, pushing, and the government loopholes that are always in everything the government does. So they're never gonna drop it, because why would you if you're gonna pocket that kind of money?
And that's even with that money that they're getting, it still has to it still has to be economically feasible. And that's where they come in, because they're the ones who know, can I put 170 acres of solar in 16 townships and have it be feasible economically, right? Versus if I can put 1,500 acres in one spot, it's gonna be a whole lot more economical from a business standpoint.
But you're only looking at the first 10 years, and this is what you guys have to look at when you talk to Homer. Because in 10 years to 20 years, what if all the tax credits go away? This business only works. It only works because of tax credits.
Correct.
It only works because of incentives at this moment.
Right.
Well, what happens in 10 years, because the business is only viable because you can get the back-end tax credits. It's no longer valuable if a whole new regime comes in, changes the solar farm arena, changes the goals of everything and says, we're going back to fossil fuel. Now, everything changes, but you guys have got to get, your ordinance has got to do this, it has to work for the time, because you're setting up ordinance that's set up for a 30-year business cycle. Do you think you're really gonna make 30 years? They haven't made 30 years once. And in Europe, they're dying. And in North America, you've got the West Coast and the East Coast, they're not viable. The farmers aren't making $1,000 now. They're not making $1,000 now, they're making their $100. Well, would a farmer if it happened today, and we took incentives off the plate, would this business stand alone? The answer is no. It only works with incentives right now, and it works for probably the next 10 years until somebody can move year 11 to 20 out and make that all go away. If it all goes away, then your ordinance has got to cover that scenario. Because you're now going to sit with solar farms that are panels sitting on property making nothing because they're not going to use it anymore. DT is going to go to the next venture, and they're going to go to the next venture.
We have a
But I guess, in either case, we still have the same issue with the state pushing this upon us.
No disagreement, no disagreement. Right now, you have, as Julie says, you have the Democratic force coming down. But if it all changes, which it always seems to change.
Exactly, and that's why government needs to move slowly,
Right,
because
so
you might have Democrats now, but you might have Republicans in 2 years, and what are they gonna do?
and as long as you're looking about that, as long as you're looking at a 10-year plan, a 20-year plan, a 30-year plan, because this is.
Speaking of 20 or 30, do you think we should have small modular nuclear reactor ordinance? I mean, would people be okay with that?
Right.
What are you gonna do with all these
Plan
solar
about it.
panels in 20 years when they're no good? Are you gonna have them, allow them to bury them on the site?
No.
Who knows?
Because these windmill blades, what are you gonna, I mean, I know we don't have windmills, but they're, these, you know,
We won't be able to use that. I
projects.
think we have a performance bond, and I believe all of that in there says it all has to be removed up to 5 feet. I think if there's something buried 5 feet, it can stay. I remember reading it. The lady in pink, you've been so patient.
He took care of it for me.
Okay.
Just the thought that, you know, our government does change and maybe we'll have some better representation in 2 years. And if government moves slow, why don't we stall it? Why don't we drag it out and?
I think that's what we're doing.
Good, excellent.
Then why can't it go longer than 6 months?
Yeah, question. Regarding the workshop meetings that are planned, who will be chairing the meeting? I'm wondering.
Probably hear us in reality,
Okay.
unless you want to.
I don't know, I mean, I just
imagine
know
it'll
that
be
the
one of the
people are.
attorneys.
Okay. Because it's a zoning, I would like to go on record again as asking that the full planning commission, you know, be attending those meetings. Everybody is, you know, very careful as to how much they talk to just, you know, make sure. But just having 4 people, I believe the full planning commission would be, you know, apprised of all the discussions. It seems only reasonable to request that they attend.
Go ahead, sir.
The overlay that you guys have, this is a proposed overlay, is that correct?
We don't have an overlay.
We don't have an overlay.
We don't have an overlay. Don't walk out from here and think
Yeah.
that there's an overlay. we do not have an overlay. We have a 6-month moratorium on the ordinance that was revised in 2021.
Do we have any, well, I mean, not little bits of commercial, but any large scale commercial or industrial area? Because isn't that kind of what Marion did, is pushed it up more into their commercial?
We don't have, we just have mud and bounds.
Okay. There it is.
And down there now.
Yeah.
Just one more clarification on this, no overlay. So the thing that's been posted that says this is where the overlay is, there is no overlay.
I think what you saw was for Marion Township, that was not for Iosco Township. We do not have an overlay.
Are you talking about the yellow
Just the
area
projected,
that they
it's a
were talking
projected,
about
it's not
earlier?
an overlay, that's just a projected, that people, DTE has went to the houses and they said they'll sign the lease.
No, it's leaves.
Or, I mean, sell it, or whatever.
Actually, leaves.
Those are leases.
So, and we don't have that information. So sometimes I think the public, and maybe you guys know people who have leases, I don't, because I don't feel like it's my place to go
You guys
and
don't
find
have
out
it.
what you, and you are doing on your property. I just need to know when you come here with a permit, that it's allowed within our ordinances.
there's
So
a
there could be information out there that you guys have that we don't.
So the moratorium, then, these places that do have a lease, they can't do anything, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
For 6 months.
For at least 6 months, yeah, and then probably a new approved ordinance.
6 months
Can I ask just a simple question? Real quick, did our moratorium start at the beginning of March? Because I thought it was the end of March or first week of April.
Third Thursday was the board meeting.
Third Thursday of March is when it started? That's when the 6 months?
Technically, Julie would have to say we had to publish.
So like the end?
I think I said it was gonna be September, so it's in.
Okay, okay.
The moratorium, can you kind of walk us through the process, like, okay, we have the ordinance in place, and then filing, like the whole filing process for them to actually come in and start building, like, are we talking?
Okay, I don't think was when the moratorium's up, I don't know, because I don't know where people are in that process, but, and Ann, you can help me out here if I'm speaking incorrectly.
Basically
They
what
have to come
happened
with
is,
a permit.
yes, the moratorium, at the end of the moratorium, the township board will have the responsibility of saying, are we ready to end that moratorium, or do we need to extend it? They have that prerogative. If it takes 3 to 6 months to write a new ordinance, it very well could get extended. We don't know until they can start having their meetings.
But after, say it's done in the 6 months, and they just come in, they're gonna file now, or,
They would request
and then that starts the building process, once the permits are.
No, they
Well,
have.
not the
they have-
building
no.
process.
Okay, that's all I'm just kind of wondering.
It starts the review process at
Okay.
the township level.
Okay, I'm just like wondering timeline.
And there would be a
how long-
public hearing.
I mean, special use on something like that would probably, from the time they turn into a permit, assuming we have an approved ordinance and all of that, probably would be, what, 6 to 8 months?
At least.
So,
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, sir.
This is what I've gotten out of the meeting so far tonight. It seems like the zoning board is willing to do the bare minimum to get through this situation, and the people would like a much more aggressive, positive approach.
May I answer that?
Yes.
I don't want anyone leaving here thinking we want to do this or anything else. A couple years ago, we didn't know anything about this. This was all dropped on us, just like it was dropped on you. Clearly, I personally don't know any more about it than you do. As far as the transparency, I feel we have listened to you. We have the moratorium in place. I mean, we thought we had it all set. You came in, you told us different, we listened. We are listening, please realize. We have hired the attorney you suggested. We have a 6-month moratorium in place. And it's hurtful when you say we're not listening. We are, but there's only certain things we can do. First of all, we're not the board, we're the planning commission. You know, there's steps to do things. So please don't think that we're all sitting here, you know, I have 2 acres. There's nothing they can do with me, you know, I mean, but it's gonna probably be around me. So I'm in the same boat, you know, as it being there. But I can say it's kind of hurtful when you think we're trying to be against you. We're not.
Well, here's an example. We talked about bringing the lawyer in here to speak to everybody, and then we hear comments from the board, well, we can't afford $175 an hour.
Okay, okay.
They have to come up with the money. The money's there.
Okay, but we're doing it in the steps that was suggested to us by our attorney. Let's have them get together. Let's gather some information. Let's not come in and just have nothing to tell you. Because right now, we really don't have a lot to tell you. So we are still investigating. We're using the attorney you suggested. We are listening. We're trying to do our best. Because we are just citizens like the rest of you. And we may have our personal opinions or whatever, but all opinions are put aside when we sit back here and we say, okay, what's going to work? You know, what's the best we can do? Solar power is new. It's new to all of us. It's scary. And, you know, anything new is scary, let's face it. And I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying it's bad. I don't know. I need more information, which is why we're doing it the way we are doing. Not to be against you or anything else. We're trying to be the best we can. Make sense?
So
Can I
how
just
many
say,
years is
can
a
I
done
just
deal?
piggyback on that just for a second? I did look up, like, why is this happening, you know, besides the tax rebates? They are shuttering coal plants, okay? I've lived here since 2000, yeah, I lived here. I grew up by the Trenton coal plant. They closed it.
It's gone.
They tore it down.
The coal is all gone.
Yeah, it's all away from here. And they shuttered another one. We used to have 3 nuclear power plants in the state. They closed Palisades, okay? Fermi closed in the 70s. Fermi 2 is open, Enrico Fermi. And I understand people were
My
terrified
son works at a coal plant.
with
And it's
electricity.
open.
Yes, but it costs so much to make the clean coal, you know, to do it. And they're people, maybe not some of the people here, but maybe some of the people here do want green energy. I mean, there is a group of people that are pushing for that. So that is why this is happening. It is not because we're trying to, I know the first group, not you, but the first group came in here, they were like, do you guys have kickbacks? And we're like, what? We don't. You know, we're just trying to do the best we can. We live here too. And we want, I mean, we want to make everyone happy, but like I said, it's not, it can't, I'm not going to be able to. We can try to do something that's fair and balanced.
Can I
mean, even in
piggyback?
Marion Township, 170 acres, there's gonna be some neighbors there that are probably pretty pissed off still.
Yeah, there could be some
Right?
people who are going to be surrounded by solar. And if you can't say, well, it's not around me, it's just around those people in the overlay, it's not really fair either.
Can I just say one?
Sure.
So I think the problem is, and I appreciate both of your comments, Pat and Tammy, of course. I think what it is for us is we didn't know about it. I found out back in 2021 from a neighbor I didn't even know. He pulled into our driveway because my husband was weeding. And he said, do you know what's going on around you? We did not. So I think that's our problem. That's our biggest problem with you guys is you're not telling us this stuff. It's not being announced. It's in the newspaper, but we already figured out that not everybody reads the newspaper. It caught us off guard. Like it was mentioned in another meeting, you guys send out a trash bill. I mean, if you truly care about us and you care about our township, we should be getting that in the mail. I mean, we should. I mean, that's why we're all here and that's why we're all nervous. We want you, we trust you, that we voted you in. But we hope,
No, we're not.
well, we voted the board in. We hope that you're here for us, and that is what makes us nervous and scared when we have to find out from neighbors we had never met, because they looked out for us better than you guys did. So that's,
Well, I found this
you know.
meeting on the Marion Township, it wasn't even on the Iosco Township one, I don't know.
No, it's that one.
Yeah.
Flyers, so we drive down the road.
Tammy, you knew about it before we did.
I knew about it I came to the May 11th, 2021 meeting, and that was because someone pulled into our driveway a few days earlier. That's it. You knew about it before me.
We had an ordinance.
We had
You
ordinance.
were-
No, we were working on an
We were-
ordinance.
Right.
We had an ordinance.
No,
And then everybody came here and was like, are you guys getting kickbacks? because there's people coming and asking about solar. And we're like, huh, what?
In that
We didn't
meet,
know about that.
but in that meeting, somebody stood up, I do not know who it was, because I didn't know half of the people there. Someone asked you, Joe, are you signing? And you said no. And then someone else put pressure on you. They redirected the question to you and they said, so you're telling us DTE had not approached you? And at that time, you said they had. So, and that was before that meeting. I found that out May 11th. So, it's been going on a long time.
That was in 2021.
2021, yes. Yeah, it's been going on a long time. And that's our problem. That's our problem. We want,
2 months ago.
well,
I can't inform anybody when I don't know that they're being approached from, DTE or whoever, these companies, like, hey, would you like to put solar on your farmland? You got lots of property. Like I said, I'm not into everybody's business and what you're doing.
and I understand we're not either, so.
I can't, and I don't know, other than the newspaper, we don't have like a cable station like sometimes cities do that have this rolling thing on there. I understand that feeling like, oh, we're not telling you. I don't know, that would be up to the township board if they wanted to do mailings. I do know that with a major solar thing, like such as what you described could happen around your house.
Yeah.
There's a special land use permit. You would be blindsided, but you would be blindsided like it's just being built up around you. You would know.
Yeah, I would
to come
know.
and voice your concerns.
I would know before they started. I mean, the land has been leased, it
Yeah, I
has.
just don't know if it's something
So-
that we can control.
I know, but the
land
thing,
lease means nothing at this point.
well, it means nothing right now because they haven't been offered.
It means
They
it's
have to-
tied up, is what it means. It means they've got like the right of first refusal in a sense, right? I mean, they've got 5 years, I don't know, 3 years maybe it was 5 years, I don't remember. But that basically if things don't come together, they walk away, right? Also, what they're doing is giving farmers money right now to tie their property up in case they can make something work. There's no guarantee it's gonna work for them.
They are getting.
Well,
Yeah, they're already getting money.
Well, yeah, it's a lease, I mean, that's what they were
see,
talking
but
about. It's
the
not
thing is,
county.
And see, you have to understand, they don't have to come to us to do that part.
and I understand
And
that.
that's why we were caught off guard on
Right.
a lot of it too, because it didn't involve us.
Right. It's a
Right.
private easement. in essence.
I
Yeah,
do
could say, someone
understand.
could come to me and say, Tammy, can we lease some of your property to, put cows on? Joe could say, can I do that? And then be like, as long as it's within the zoning regs. Like, sure, and he could, right? I mean,
It's a private lease.
I just hope we can trust you guys, that's all. And I said that to you in May of '21. I looked at you and I said, I hope we can trust you to take care of, to take care of the people that are not gonna get money out of this deal,
Which is the majority.
which is the majority. Yeah, so we're counting on you.
okay, anybody else? Go ahead.
I just think, look, she's gonna be surrounded, there's a lot of people that are gonna be completely surrounded, minus the road, right, access, okay? But you do have the power to say, when you're looking at those proposals eventually along, later on, that, hey, I don't think it's ideal for this person to be landlocked in solar. What happens? You do have the power to say, put in the ordinance, we know these things leak and stuff. Can you they have to test the water around, the groundwater every so often. You do have the power to say a lot of things. You might not be able to say, you can only do 170 acres or whatever, okay? But you can sure make sure that they follow some strict guidelines when it comes to how they take care of these solar panels, who monitors them, what happened, and you can sure do studies to see if they level the ground around my house, because I already get flooding in front of my yard because it comes off the field. But what happens when they level the ground? Does it destroy my whole property? And what happens then?
And that's what happened. Those things are engineering things.
Right.
And that's
All
what
of
happens
those
at
concerns
the
to
special use, yeah. I mean, it can be
But I'm
covered
just
somewhat
saying,
in the
I
ordinance,
just need you
but
guys
every
to
site
know
would
that.
be slightly
Think about
different.
that.
And that's when you would be notified, and that's when you would come
I
and
mean,
voice that,
Can I
if
share something?
if that
which,
happens.
Frankly, I mean, I'm a farmer,
Yeah.
and I guess I don't know what people's opinions here either way on this are, but I can tell you, my opinion is, unless Homier says it would not be allowed, is there would be no such thing as land leveling, right? I mean, there's no pretending. There's one thing talking about 20 or 30 years down the road, pulling up posts and, you know, going back and tilling the property minus, you know, a driveway easement here or there. It's another thing to think that you're gonna come back in 20 or 30 years after you just move 2 or 3 foot of, you know, soil and spread it out over the rest of your topsoil and gonna farm that land. You ruin that land, right? So, I mean, to me, at least, that's one of the issues that I would have, and I would hope that Homier says he could support that, is that there's no such thing as earth moving, right? You're pounding in posts. That's what you're doing, and you're trenching in electrical cable. Right? So.
Go ahead.
Okay, I was for solar.
You're
I
what?
drive,
I'm sorry.
I was for solar. I drive on 13 going north, and I've seen what they've done. They don't maintain that property. It's got weeds, it looks horrible. I mean, if you're going to do solar, you have to try to make the property look halfway decent. So I live like her, I am going to be surrounded by all the solar, and I can see what it's going to do to my property. And so I'm thinking, there has to be some ordinance or something done if it's going to come in around me, because my property is going to tank as far as value.
I know that, again, from the, yeah, that is part of the consideration, and I myself, was not telling you, I want there to be non-invasive pollinator species to help our insect friends if you know, a project happens to go through. So it wouldn't look bad, that it would be beneficial environmentally.
Well, that on 13 is horrible.
They did an abysmal job. I
Yes,
will agree
it
with
is
you.
terrible.
And they didn't move any dirt on that, was that all,
They did it.
that flat?
They actually did.
Is she talking about where I went and I talked to the one guy?
You're talking about.
Yeah, I drove out there and I talked to a gentleman who lived out there, who was a farmer, and he did say, and he said that they
Not a lot of areas.
were
but yeah,
moving
areas.
soil down to the clay, and I was like, yeah, that's not good. And I
was gonna
told
say,
Joe, and we do want to protect the land, because if it does go back to farming in 30 years, we wanted to be able to do that.
I couldn't believe we come that way from Franklin. And I said, that's like, all that flat land, that's what a farmer wants. I mean, we do all of our hills, and to have flat land like that, and then have solar panels on it.
You know, and
It was
and
just-
everyone has different opinions. I mean,
Yeah.
My brother-in-law is
Yep.
from Iowa, and they're family farmers, they own the Murray grain elevator. I told him, he's like, what are you doing at Eastern? I says, the township's, like, people are concerned about solar, and he's like, why? So, I don't know, I mean, Iowa farmers are big farmers.
Do they have it? A lot of it?
There's a lot of them out there, yeah, and it helps the farmers keep their land, he said.
I mean, because another aspect of it, and again, this is from the farming perspective, you know EVs are growing, they're gonna continue to grow. That is gonna also drive the price of corn down. Because a lot of corn is used in ethanol right now, and you could argue whether that makes sense or not too, of course. That's a whole other issue. But the bottom line is that personally, I think that Michigan, the estimate I think that I had heard or read was that it was like 100 or 150,000 acres of solar panels to build out what would be needed to meet their goals. And don't quote me on exact on that, because I am going by memory, which my memory is obviously not that great. But in any case, that was my recollection. It was like 100 or 150,000 acres. We would not miss that in Michigan. I mean, especially with the way the market's going to be going for corn in the future. right? I mean, people are eating less beef, that's just a fact. That's a big use of our grain in the United States. And ethanol is a really big use of grain too. So, I mean, I don't think, personally, I have any issue with the overall use of farmland. I don't think the loss of farmland is going to be detrimental to us. I would have a bigger issue, and this is Joe Parker speaking personally, with the loss of fruit and vegetable ground. In my talks with DTE, I did mention to them that it really bothers me that Burma Farms is on this list, and I'm sure that they wouldn't be happy me saying that probably, but because that's real food, right? I mean, that's not corn, that's not field corn, that's vegetables. It bothers me that I know elsewhere in the state, you've got people thinking of tearing up cherry trees and stuff like that. You know, those are the areas to me that really need to be protected, right? I don't
What really bothers me is living by it, and what it's gonna do to us. You know, that's what really bothers me, and our price of our homes are gonna.
Yes, from our local community standpoint, obviously, it's property value is the big issue.
Well, Joe, the largest plot, oh, well, I don't know if it's the largest, but you look at Burndale Farms, that's where they're talking about, that's probably one of the biggest plots of, that has signed leases. Those people don't even live here. You know, that's the thing. They're just gonna make money off of all that. And then they own a big, large corporation. When do they even come here? They don't, hardly ever, maybe to hunt. Well, none of that. I mean, so there's no vested interest for those people. That's the thing. There's not a lick of vested interest. They don't care.
Joe, do you have any knowledge on the noise stuff from it? I've heard about it, but it's hard to, like, true, that, like, they talk about the decibel levels or how loud they actually are. I thought solar is quiet, but there's a lot of talk about noise. But is there like a place around it where they hear them, or?
Drive up to Lennon.
Lennon, okay.
And, yeah.
That's a comparable to like what we're talking here?
No, I mean, not in my opinion,
Okay.
but, I mean, it would be comparable to what we would allow. But
Yeah, I mean, that's one thing we do want,
that's
I
where you
know, I
could go
want to
here with
address,
the
I don't want people.
noise level of an inverter could be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do they run all the time? Because when we were there,
During
we
the
didn't,
day.
okay, we were there during the day, but we didn't hear them. I mean, are they in a certain area out there?
No, they're scattered about, but yeah, I heard them when I was up there.
Yeah, I went to one and I was standing by and I didn't hear anything, but then I heard something off in the distance, I did hear, you know, an irritating noise.
When they change direction.
So, yeah, that's an
But I know the
issue, obviously,
substation at the end of my road makes
on the
noise.
hit list.
So I mean, if we can look at that noise, maybe whatever those decibels are, could be the decibels of.
I mean, I don't think that, let's put it this way, I don't think the noise is anything that's insurmountable. I mean, it's a case of with proper screening and possibly requiring like
Sound
anechoic foam inserts around a enclosure without a roof so that it's still cool, I don't think you would hear them.
That's what we're, yeah, honestly, we're trying to figure out if we're saying.
It's ways, there's ways to take care of that. It's not that loud,
No, but it's quiet.
so.
Around most
Yeah,
areas.
it's quiet.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
I don't think at night they make any noise, because there's no sound.
Correct.
So you could be able to sleep.
They are
at night.
quiet.
Okay, you could have your hand up, did you still want to say something? No?
Well, I think it was in Marion, they had, I guess the best way to describe it is like a beautification type tax that they would give the company. Like say if they did let it go awry and it looks like crap, I think they had something implemented that they had to tend the grounds per se. So I just wanted you guys to consider that for when you do discuss this in future endeavors, that should be an important factor, because I'm gonna look at all this. If I'm gonna look at these things, I've seen the trees that they plant, half of them die.
As I said, they did it.
You know, like, they did an abysmal job. If we can try to make it, we're gonna have them, it's gonna happen, I understand that. But if we can try to make it better for us to be, you know, not, like not plant poinsettias or like arborvitae's, like, come on, like give us something decent.
You know, I mean,
Plant
to me,
some
you want a
conifers,
sample of
some
what
nice
speed is?
conifers or cherry
Drive on
trees.
Munson Ro- or drive on Mason Road, just east of Frank's house, right? Where, you know, Frank Munsell,
Yes.
right? Just east of his house where he put the double row of pine trees, that basically you see nothing behind those trees.
Sure.
He planted them 15 years ago.
No, well, he started with really tiny ones.
Yeah.
I mean, our ordinance requires 6-foot
Put
trees,
them in there.
so. I
Yeah,
mean,
but
With
they
some,
got-
with some, I think the our ordinance too, wasn't it with bushes in between and 3 rows by a house?
Well, that was in the last meeting. Where was that tree marked at for how high it was supposed to be, right?
Right.
So or that could have been Marion as well, but ultimately, let's just make it, like, we know it's gonna happen, just do your best to
Right. That is
not
our-
make it look like shit.
Right.
And thank you.
Yeah, I mean, any screening is gonna take a few years to grow in.
We understand that.
Not 15.
But not what they've been putting up, that guy, you know.
And I think our ordinance does say that
What they
dies
did
needs
up
to be
there was-
replaced.
And let's make them pay us,
Oh.
you know, they're gonna pay us to fix it.
I guess I do have a question on that. So if the ordinance is with the original company that signs that lease, and then say that, like people have talked about, if that company goes out of business or whatever, is that ordinance press on to the next person that they have to upkeep it, that type of thing, or was it just the original
Yeah.
company that signed it? Is there something?
Yeah, everything would be transferable.
Okay.
Well, what happens if they go bankrupt? Would then the farmers be responsible for it?
That's the performance bond.
There's a performance bond. I mean, at that point, I guess if they truly like disappeared, the township would have that money to hire people to
Fair enough.
fill it out.
Fair enough.
When you talk about a performance bond, what kind of performance bond are you gonna
I'll let
propose, do
Peter
you think?
address
Or-
that.
Pardon me?
You're talking about dollar wise?
Well, no, not so much dollar wise, but like what kind of a bond, or like what are you, cash bond up front for decommissioning costs 30
I'm not
years from
gonna-
now?
I'm not gonna guess. Like I said, that's where Homer and Harris, the attorneys, will know what's the safest thing for the township to do.
So, as somebody that's been through this or have seen lots of these being done, it's not his job to do that, just so you know. It is your job to take what these people are telling you they would like to see and propose it to him. Then it's his job to compile all that in a form that makes sense and that he can defend in the court,
I understand that.
okay? So when you say, he is gonna say what kind of bond you want, he's gonna ask you what kind of bond this township wants.
So we have something in our ordinance right now, we just don't have it memorized. I think I do recall that it was gonna be reviewed
Well,
in
it
5 years.
has reviewed,
and
but
we
the
said-
attorneys, our attorney is still gonna recommend to us what we're gonna do with our bond.
And
He
our
has in
land
the past.
planning engineer too.
So I understand what you're saying, and in general, right, the attorney is gonna take all of our input that we got from the public, and he's gonna draft up what he thinks he can defend in court. But he is also intelligent from the standpoint of handling finances for townships, and bonds are one of them, and we turn to our attorney with that kind of question.
Right, so
I'm
I
assuming
guess to be
Homer-
blunt, are you looking at a surety bond? Is that what you have now in your, do you know, or you're not sure?
We have performance bond in our ordinance right now, it has to be reevaluated every 5 years.
You have, I'm sorry,
Performance bond.
performance bond?
Did it have an amount in there, but I don't recall, I just don't.
It's said to acceptable to the
Yeah,
township.
it had to, the amount had to be evaluated, and then based on inflation and that kind of stuff.
Right.
Right. But
It wasn't
it
$2.
was,
It has to be equal to 100% of the total estimated
right.
decommissioning and reclamation costs, and it has to be reevaluated and adjusted every 5 years. That's what we
So-
have currently.
So it's basically a surety performance bond.
It's whatever the
It's not a
township board
cash
decides
performance.
to accept, yes.
And the reason I'm asking these questions is because when you have an LLC and they go bankrupt, the surety bond is worth zero.
And that's what all the attorneys are saying. And 5 years is not often enough to review it.
And I had put that to be revised.
And that's why
And
a
that's
lot
why
of
he
these
said we
companies
have a lawyer.
have all these different LLCs, because if this particular one doesn't make money, right, but this one over here is making money, well, they have different company
There's a
names
show,
on
yeah.
every one, right?
I don't know.
And I know this because I've been in construction for over 35 years, and I know how the games are played, and they play the games the same way,
And
okay?
Mug and Bob says LLCs all over the place too, and
Correct.
different names, I looked it up.
But I'm just letting you know, like, you know, so if this solar array in this township, or whatever they're calling it, right, because they call them names, everyone has a name, right? And if it's not making money and nobody wants to buy it, and 10 years or 15 years from now, they just say, okay, we're done with it, and they go bankrupt. Like I said, the surety bond is worth nothing.
That's like.
You're not gonna win in court to get that money. It's, you know, because they went bankrupt, they're getting the money from an insurance company, is how that works. A surety bond is from an insurance company.
Yep.
So if they go bankrupt, the insurance company says, well, we're not paying because they're out of business, and you're never gonna win because you're in court forever, right? I mean, they just keep dragging it. I'm just letting you know, that's what will happen. So, in many townships, they are asking for a 100% cash up front that is put in escrow so that they're covered. And they're projecting, and I stated at a meeting here a few months ago, in 20 years from now, the decommissioning cost per acre is $98,000 per acre. That's at 2% inflation per year, starting from today.
So if a farmer looks at his revenue and he gets, just in theory, let's just make it up, example, $1,000 for 12 months for every acre, and he gets it for the next 5 years. Okay, and let's assume that 1,000 doesn't stay, and now it goes down to 800 and goes another 5 years. And something happens in year 11, which that's the critical year, right? Hopefully the farmers are looking at this total picture, right? Because the scenario should be, it isn't just a business plan for today because I'm getting a windfall. It's a 30-year business plan with all these scenarios, of which none are very good. And it more than offsets the revenue that you would have received from it. But I assume that the farmers are, you know, they've looked at it, they've taken their value of money, they've said if you were a farmer, you would sit down with a you know, somebody that can forecast it out, what the taxes are gonna be, what's the incentives that you're gonna get from it, and then all the different scenarios about when this thing turns around. If it doesn't turn around, you can see the great scenario that you've seen, right? You could see that $1,000 really making money into the future. But if there's scenario B, C, and D, where the value of the property goes down, the companies go out of business, tax incentives go out, those scenarios start to then chip away at what you've saved. So again, today it looks great, but if anybody signed up for a 30-year anything, I would tell them that hopefully they're all going to somebody that will be, you know, look at this, because there's lots of examples out there. You can see all these companies, and whether they're good or bad companies, it really doesn't make a difference. It's the tax incentives that are making them think about coming to Iosco Township. It's not because they think that solar is a great deal. And I agree with you, Joe, there's EVs, but there's always going to be something, right? But that's not what's bringing them here. It's not because the business is good. If the business was good, they had been here 10 years ago. Because they don't want to be behind. EVs, we were talking 10 years ago. EVs are still no closer. They're 10 years still out, right? To get the power and energy that you need. So 10 years ago, they should have came knocking on their door if they really wanted to play in this game. The only reason they're playing the game is because of incentives. That's the only way this business makes it. And you can read any publication on that you want. It's all out there.
Convince anyone of that.
But I'm just saying, that's a scenario. Then you're stuck with it. The township is stuck with whatever the results are gonna be. It's not gonna be DTE. DTE's not gonna, they don't care. You can look at Detroit and you can see DTE's fine work. That's what they do. They're a big company. No one's gonna touch them. So just trying to open eyes, that's all. Ask lots of questions. And if it doesn't sound right, then it's probably not right.
Anybody else?
Just real quick, a couple of questions and maybe just a few comments. You had mentioned, so it's pretty clear now that somebody, the workshop committee's been defined and it doesn't include, I don't want to say one of us because that implies us versus you and that's not real, I don't think. But I'll use your name just so you know what I'm talking about here, right? So given that, and you mentioned you had passed on a list of resident concerns over this.
To our land planner who
Can
helps us write
that
our
be shared?
The list that I made? Yeah. Yeah, if I can find it. I can, it's in an
Or
email.
published, or, yeah, whatever.
I mean, I can send it to Erin if Erin wants to distribute it. I mean, it was given through an official FOIA, I think, too. Kelly Relko was asking, so she has it.
And I get, it's hard to get people together, but I guess I'm curious what the bottleneck is of at least getting something on the calendar, a date set for the workshop.
Vacations.
Vacations. Okay. So this is the questions, I guess, comments, I guess I'm a combination of shocked and maybe disappointed that the Marion Township ordinance hasn't been read. Given the enormity of this. Joe said he hasn't read it.
I haven't heard it.
Yeah, and I guess I don't quite get that, given the scope of this and how close it is to us.
Well, can I say something to that?
Sure.
I've read other ordinances that were given to us, and I know, like, in my professional work that I do, sometimes mistakes are carried over from document to document. You might think, oh, it's just great just to copy this and do that. And I think even prior to us being on this planning commission, like, I'm talking maybe 10 or 15 years, I think there was a lot of just copy and pasting from what other people did. And I don't think that's always the best thing. I think we need to look at what works best for our township.
Completely agree, and not saying this should be a copy and paste. I hate the explanation, well, that's how it's always been done, right? That doesn't sit well with me, which is copy.
Right, I want to be objective
That's
and
copy
talk
paste.
on the group,
But-
what works good for here.
But I think there's a lot to learn, good or bad, from neighboring ordinances, and given the hot topic it is. I guess I was just surprised to hear that. Joe, you had mentioned that DTE has, I don't know the frequency, contact you regarding getting information about how the meeting went, and you had explained that it was out of their discomfort, of coming into a potentially hostile environment, right? Well, I think that's inappropriate to have a private conversation with them for that purpose. This is not comfortable for me. Having this surround me out my front window is not comfortable. Addressing the township board for me is not comfortable. Not tucking my damn kids into bed tonight is not comfortable, right? So I don't think that's an appropriate reason to have private conversations with DTE. I think those need to be not phone calls, but transparent conversations. I think that's only fair.
As I said, if she calls me, I'll talk to her. That's just the way it is. I'm not gonna not talk to her if she calls me. She hasn't called me in quite a while, but that's her prerogative.
Yeah, I think
I'll
those,
talk to you.
yeah, and we're doing it publicly, which I think is what that should be as
You
well.
can't compare her coming and sitting in this audience, okay? She'd be coming in this audience being one person in a crowd of, how many of you are here, right? Flip-flop that. You're the one guy who supports solar, right, in this room. How comfortable are you gonna be to talk? a lot less comfortable than you're gonna be able to talk to us right now, right?
But
I
Joe, she
think
doesn't have
comparing me
to
to
talk.
an
She
executive
can listen, she
meeting
doesn't
is
even have to identify herself.
irrational.
Well, she chooses not to. I don't,
That's the
it's
thing.
like not my business.
I do have to say though, this has been a nice meeting.
Yes,
And this is the kind of
I-
meetings that we have had before with the public,
We're not
unlike the
following the
few
call of the public
before.
rules whatsoever.
Yeah, we're not, yes, we are not following the 3-minute rule at all, but
No, and
we
thank you
do
for the
like,
time.
we do like to have the dialogue, because
Right.
it's, you know,
And then-
a lot less of this.
I guess one last comment is, I was also shocked to hear that our planning commission, so when we talk about the infamous yellow area, right, the leased land, I guess I'm shocked that the township planning commissioner isn't, or commission, isn't aware of that land, or has no, I guess, I don't get the impression there's a desire to seek that out.
It's not that, they don't have to come to us for permission to sign.
No, understood.
It
I
doesn't
would just
involve
think
this
that,
building per se.
I would think that our township leaders would seek that information out.
Who has land agreements?
I'll maybe go the unpopular one and support you guys on that one. I don't, if I lease out 5 feet of my property, I don't want you guys in my business.
I would
So
not share somebody's private information.
I will support you guys on that one, that yes, you may know, but from sitting in your chair there, you don't care. It doesn't matter to
Until
you.
they come in and speak to Ann for a permit or apply, then it involves us.
Then it becomes our business.
Then it's our business, then it's our record.
Understood, and I'm not asking anybody to list
No, I'm just-
names of whose land is leased. I know that's,
I mean,
I wouldn't-
somebody out there has found out that information and is doing that, you know.
Where
so-
is it? Where is that map?
Yeah, where's the infamous yellow line?
Is it on Facebook or?
Yep.
Yeah.
that's where
Well,
I
not
actually see
everybody's
that.
on Facebook. I'm
Yeah.
not on Facebook.
And I don't necessarily think
Yeah.
Facebook or that is like, I mean, it does get people together and it does get information shared, but I don't always know how accurate that information is. It's not the official information. You know, the official thing is when someone comes in with a permit and is asking for,
I would just say that map is official as of the Register of Deeds. Every one of those leases were pulled before they were put on that map. So I just don't want you guys thinking that people is just, putting information out there that's inaccurate. It's all leases that were pulled from the Register of Deeds, so it is accurate.
and that's fine, but
I
then
think
we're being told, well, you guys aren't aware of
No,
something,
I think
but it's
what
like
he was
it's not our
saying,
business.
I don't think what he was saying is that he was expecting you to say, yes, this land is specifically leased and it's leased by this person. I think what he's
No.
saying is that he's surprised that with the gravity of this in our township, that you guys have no idea what land or how much land, and it does feel like a little bit of a problem to me.
I don't think, I think it's better to
you
be
have
more
no
objective
idea.
and not have all that information and make an objective ordinance. I mean, maybe, oh, that's my buddy over there, he's got a lease, I'm gonna wanna make sure it goes in this
I think it's
direction.
more, I think
You know?
I think what you're gonna do is when you work with the attorney is going to, again, assuming you guys take everything from us to them, I think he's, even in Marion Township, correct me if I'm wrong, for the people that were there, but I believe that they had a designated area prior to this area that was gonna be for solar farms and wind a few years ago when they were required to do so. Then what happened is they basically, and the poor lady that had it was absolutely, didn't have any intentions of leasing her land at any point in time, and she had just lost her husband. So there was a lot of people looking at her like, hey, this is the township took it upon themselves to mark her property as a place where it's gonna be, not that she had any choice in the matter. Even though that all happened, when they came back, they rezoned and did whatever they did and found the spots that they found. So I don't know, if there's 50 acres or 100 acres that are identified today, when you guys get done drawing up whatever you're gonna draw up, well, I don't know, it'll be 50 in that spot or where everybody has it. I don't know how you make all those people happy, because I assume you're not gonna be able to do everything that they want done either. So,
Well, that's why I didn't say we were gonna promise an overlay.
Well, I don't know if there's an overlay or what, I don't know what the term is that you're using, but I'm just saying if there's a land that that people are doing business with today, with intentions of doing business, right? And then tomorrow, I assume you're gonna have an ordinance. I don't know if you're gonna agree with the people that have already, so you're gonna know sooner or later.
Right.
So you're gonna draw something
You
up,
don't know that yet.
and you don't know where the cross sections are. I don't know if that's good, bad, or indifferent, whether you guys know that or not, because maybe it's better that you're in the dark, because maybe you don't, I don't know. Maybe it's good that, I think his point's fine, because like, why don't you know? But 50% of the county is being used up already, and we're going to 75%. And 1 week to the next, it went from 75 to 85, I don't know.
The county or the township?
Township, sorry. I don't know, maybe you would like to know that, maybe you don't, I don't know.
I mean, I think our best thing that we could hope for is to know what the total allowable acreage in the township would be for an ordinance. That gives us at least some, yes, if you're next to it, it doesn't matter if it's 1 acre or all of it, but if we know that it's 100, 200, or if it's all 2,000 or whatever there is, like once that much has been used up, that's all that's going to be in this township. And then from there, we're going into what are the setbacks, what are the screenings, what are the noise, what are the maintenance. Like, so as that information starts to become available, like that's the incremental information that I think we're hoping to get throughout the process, instead of maybe waiting until the very end and like drop the whole thing on us.
Like what direction we're going? Because right now,
I think the way I explained it originally when we set this up would be that the goal would be to draft the framework, if you will. We've got all the concerns, so we've got all these objective issues, right? You got the noise, you got the groundwork, you've got the screening, you've got whatever. I mean, those are all basically objective issues. Then around all those issues, there's a ton of subjective requirements, right? I mean, that's the bottom line. I mean, people have opinions as to what is going to be appropriate or acceptable. So at that point is when it becomes, okay, taking the input from the public and the work that Mr. Holmrear has done, probably primarily Marion, or if he's got another township that he would rather use as like a framework for the subjective type of issues, to apply those to this ordinance, this draft ordinance now. And then it becomes, okay, let's review this. Are these subjective items, 25 dB, 30 dB, 100 dB, whatever, those things then become the final, let's tweak these to what we want, right? So, in essence, that's how I see it rolling out. So there'll be a framework to make sure all the objective issues are on there, and then address the subjective part of it. Filling in the numbers, filling in the,
So Joe, would that be in a planning commission meeting forum to review that with the public, or would that be?
At that point, yes. At that point, it would be rolled out to the public, correct?
Okay.
Through this forum. Through this forum.
Yeah.
It would be a public hearing. It wouldn't be
yeah.
it wouldn't be in our regular meeting here. We'd have a
Well, it
separate
depends how
meeting,
you
right?
wanted to do it, because
Okay.
technically it wouldn't be a finished ordinance yet.
Okay.
So, but it's up to you. I guess you could call a public hearing, I suppose.
I think we could just do a public hearing just about that and then just get through business.
Well, that's true. We focus on it.
Yeah.
Is that how you recommend for the public to stay informed, to come to these meetings?
Yeah.
Or the board meeting, or
Both.
Okay.
I mean, the board won't be doing anything with it. I mean, in all honesty. I mean, it's the planning commission that's tasked with getting the ordinance drafted before it's gonna go to the board. So, I mean, I'll give like updates to the board where it's at, so to speak, but the actual information will get rolled out through here.
And I've always said I welcome people to come. I do like it that people come because they do say, well, we don't know what's going on. I was just gonna say as an example, I probably should get this wrapped up, but the kennel ordinance, there could be people who have dogs. We're gonna redo that to fix it to match Livingston County, and that could put some people out of our zoning ordinance. And they're gonna be like, no one came to me and no one told me, you know? And then that's just how it happens. We're not doing it on purpose to upset people with dogs and, you know, kennels. So that's all I have to say. And if no one else has anything urgent that they need to say, I think I'm gonna,
Hang on.
go ahead.
Our agenda is now going to be online, correct?
I send it to Amanda, I need to have it 10 days ahead, I think I had it earlier. I just want everyone to know, it's just a draft, it didn't change tonight, but sometimes we do add stuff to it, but it's just it's not official, but it's just, yeah, a draft, so you guys know what we're talking about.
What is the reoccurring meeting schedule, these ones?
Second Tuesdays.
Second Tuesday.
Yeah, and if you
Oh,
go,
well, almost consistently.
except for like, if it's different, like.
Usually it's only different
Usually
in March.
usually it's only March.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's Iosco Township.com. You can go there and see all the planning commission meetings and all the township board meetings.
Yeah, the board review, I think, interferes with it in March, so we have to bump it.
Okay, so we're gonna end the meeting. And that would be
You want a
8:46.
motion for that?
Oh. I don't think you've moved, does anyone have, I'll make a motion to end the meeting. 8:46. I'll check into it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for coming.
Thank
It was a
you.
good meeting.
Thank you,
I was glad
guys.
to have you all here.